Hey Hoopaholics, it's Coach Spins here back in the film room today, breaking down the Celtics defense, and we're going to be taking a look at how they rotate around Kemba Walker and some of their smaller players to limit the amount of times that they're involved in mismatches. Now the Celtics run a switching defense where anytime there's a screen, mostly on ball and sometimes off ball, depending on the circumstances, they're going to try to switch those matchups. Now they'll typically switch 2 through 4, which during this playoff series with the Raptors has been Smart, Brown, and Tatum. And in the regular season, they'll add Gordon Hayward into that mix because they're all similar type of athletes. But there are definitely downsides to switching. As you see, there are early mismatches that can develop for some post players. And when guys like Kemba Walker get switched onto a big like Pascal Siakam, that's an unfortunate one-on-one advantage that goes against the Celtics. So what we'll be diving into today are the ways that Brad Stevens can prevent Kemba from being in these situations. The first one is known as a scram switch. So the Raptors here raise and set a simple ball screen that gets Ibaka switched onto Kemba Walker. But as Ibaka goes to drop down in the post, Jaylen Brown comes over from the weak side corner to guard Ibaka, giving Kemba an out. And that's a huge opportunity for the Celtics to prevent their point guard and not give up simple middle post-ups or isolations. You see it again here with Tatum taking away that responsibility from Wanamaker. Now throughout the series, Kemba Walker has been guarding Fred VanVleet to start possession. So when VanVleet comes off a simple ball screen, he's going to try to snake and get Tice onto him. And that's where Marcus Smart comes into play. You see him here pointing for Kemba Walker to go take his man as the more physical Smart switches onto Ibaka. Those types of plays neutralize post-up opportunities. And again, Tice has to switch out to Lowry on here, and Grant Williams comes to the rescue, forcing Kemba to the corner. Now, a lot of these plays are about communication. The other 4 Celtics on the floor need to be aware of how to help Kemba in these situations, but he's great at communicating to his teammates when he needs help. He's not trying to be selfish and say that he can't guard somebody and just want an easier matchup. He saves the Celtics points by communicating as soon as he realizes that he's in a situation where he's going to be picked on. Now you may notice there are some situations where there are 2 Celtics players in the weak side corner, and they'll essentially renegotiate the matchup between those 3 guys. So right here as Wanamaker switches onto Ibaka, Siakam moves along the baseline, bringing Tatum, Grant Williams, and Wanamaker into the play. And the 3 of them will negotiate the switches amongst themselves to get Wanamaker on Powell instead of on Siakam. Now, here's a play that highlights the awareness of those Celtics help defenders. As this slip is going on where Siakam finally gets Kemba on him, look at Robert Williams. His eyes are staring down the ball the entire time because he knows he's going to be needed to help on any potential switch. Now, the Celtics get caught a little bit here as Kemba carries Siakam too deep and bumps into Williams on his way out. But look at Jason Tatum. He's already left his man OG Anunoby alone in the corner to give up that corner 3 and make sure that he prevents an Ibaka layup. Now, a smart play here from Ibaka, and the Celtics have to, again, scramble out, communicate, and find their matchups, but they prevent an initial layup and get a block. This scram action doesn't just happen in the block. It also happens at the elbows, another area where big men like to isolate. So you see here, Kemba gets Siakam and the switch, and he and Semi Ojeleye are just going to switch those matchups with Ojeleye coming up to take Siakam. The advantage of having so many strong physical defenders that can defend 3 positions or more, like Smart, like Brown, like Tatum, is that they can make these plays and communicate with Kemba to mask those one-on-one advantages the Raptors might have. But awareness is key because those Celtics defenders need to be able to rotate on the flight of the ball in order to excuse Kemba from that disadvantage. Something else I've noticed in this Raptors series is that Boston is working hard to move around Kemba when he's in the opposite corner of the ball. And we call that the fire spot, and there's a reason we call it the fire spot, and that's where Jason Tatum is right now because when middle penetration occurs, he's the guy that has to essentially fire to protect the rim and make sure that he's getting there to engage the play. Now, typically speaking, you want a longer-armed, more athletic, big defender to step into that position because he's going to be able to challenge plays at the rim and contest shots. Now, the fire guy is typically the lowest opposite defender from where the ball is, especially when it's on an outer third of the floor. So in order to make sure that this isn't Kemba, the Celtics switch out of that spot and put somebody else in there. It's not as much about protecting Kemba from mismatches on the ball with his man as it is putting somebody in a position to help and rebound on the glass. Some people will refer to this concept as zoning up the backside. So when there's a play on one side of the floor, the Celtics will essentially form a zone opposite. How can we tell the Celtics are doing that? Well, watch this play here. As Van Vliet and Lowry, two type of guards that Kemba can guard, exchange, Kemba walks up to the elbow with Van Vliet, his man. But when they exchange back in the corner, Kemba stays, and Tatum, now the low man, holds his responsibility there. Again, it's less about the matchup for Kemba as it is the spot that the Celtics want him on the floor. The advantage for the Celtics is twofold. One, now they'll have a taller player like Tatum down low, where he can jockey for position on the glass and block out aggressive offensive rebounders for the Raptors. Secondly, he has more length, which allows him to cover ground a little bit easier on a longer closeout. When you're in the fire spot and you sink under the basket, when skips and extras take place, he's going to be the one closing out to contest the shot. The strategy also allows those Celtics help side defenders, whether it's Kemba, Wanamaker, or whoever, to be more engaged in looking at the ball because they're less worried about their matchup on the weak side as soon as they get into the position they're required to be. Now, navigating matchups is a nightmare in transition, but it's something the Celtics have been cognizant of. You see Kemba Walker is stuck in the hole. Now Daniel Tice slides over and ends up taking Marc Gasol. You see Marcus Smart pointing for where Kemba to go, and Smart dives to take Siakam in that fire spot, in the lowest opposite spot from where the ball is right now. That's a lot of communication on the fly, but the Celtics make it work. Brad Stevens, Kemba Walker, the entire Celtics team has been fantastic throughout the Raptors series on defense, and a huge reason for it is their communication and willingness to rotate around Kemba Walker to preserve the matchups that provide success for them.